A brand is a promise, but you have to communicate that promise if you want people to understand it and believe it. And that's what we do with this tactical element of the big picture communications, or sometimes called promotions. If you think in terms of 4 Ps, it's telling the brand story. Let's go through how we do that in terms of big picture. We first of all start the thinking around our communications objectives. What is it we actually want to accomplish when we communicate, when we shout out to the market what we're promising in our value proposition? And look at it as a spectrum, starting with basic awareness. Sometimes you have a customer that never heard of you, has never heard of your brand, and you have zero recognition with them. And the starting point for a good brand story is just to get them to know who you are. Kind of like meeting a person for the first time. You introduce yourself. And that is what we do. It's at this first basic awareness part of communications objectives. Moving up from that, we get them to not only know and recognize our brand when they hear its name or they see its logo, but actually know something about it. They know a little bit about what it does or how it works or where you can buy it or what it costs. They don't know a lot, but they have some information that they can actually relay it to somebody else. They know enough to get them to, they know enough, the customer knows enough, they could tell others about it at this stage of communications. Then we not only have a customer at this where they know the brand, they have information about it, but they actually act on it. They're motivated to do something, probably to buy it, right? Or try it, or visit a website. There are many things we can motivate a customer to do in this behavior objective. And think about the value proposition. This should sound a lot like the desired do. What is it we're actually trying to get them to do? And then we also strive at some point now to not only get them to do something, but to maintain what's called top of mind awareness. And this is where the customer not only knows your brand, they know what it does, they've tried it perhaps, but they also hold it at a special spot in their head that if they were asked, we like to joke, if you woke up a customer at 2 in the morning and said, what brand of sparkling water do you drink? They would say, LaCroix, right? They would immediately know and have that top of mind awareness because you've reinforced it so strongly. That is another objective. And finally is this objective called image. Image is where the customer not only knows your product, they hold it in that special place at the top of their mind, but they actually identify that brand with themselves. It's that emotional connection, that belonging that they have between the brand and them, their own ego, and they see themselves. They see themselves as a reflection of that brand. So these are the objectives that you would sit down with and say, okay, what is it we really want to do? You don't just go out there and start telling your story, for example, and explaining what the product does if they've never even heard of it. You've got to establish basic awareness. And you can see these start from over here at the left and move over to the right. It gets more difficult and therefore more expensive. You have to continue to spend more money. But how does this connect to the big picture? Well, what do you know? Here's the big picture for go-to-market strategies. And we now, again, have in each quadrant a guidance in terms of what objective we should be setting for our communications based on our strategy. Here is the linkage between execution and strategy that big picture creates. Let's go through it. In quadrant 1, where we have a customer who doesn't even consume the category, you better establish basic awareness. Maybe they've never heard of the category. Maybe they've heard of it, but they don't really know anything about it. So we also have to give them some information about what it does. And at this point, I'd like you to start to think about what are some new categories of products or services that I've begun using, and what was my journey to get into that? It could be a new category of a particular type of food or a health regimen, a diet, for example. It could be a particular type of technology that you started using, maybe a dash cam. I recently got a dash cam for my car that looks out ahead of the road and videotapes what's going on. I've never been in that before. So I needed to be just generally aware of that and have some idea of what they do before I would consider it. So that's what we do in quadrant one. Over in quadrant two, loyal customers, they already get it. They already understand you. Guess what? You're just trying to reinforce their behavior in terms of retention, but also image, that they are smart, that they are a good reflection of the brand, and the brand is a good reflection of them. Down in quadrants 3 and 4, it's especially in quadrant 3 where you have multi-brand customers. It's all about top of mind awareness and getting a behavioral switch. You want to get more pocket share, right? You want to earn more share in quadrant 3, but you also have to spend heavily to keep top of mind awareness if you're going to win the game in quadrant 3. And over in quadrant 4, it's all about information and behavior, potentially awareness if they don't know you, but it's about information, especially about how your product or service is better than theirs. And the behavior, of course, you want to motivate trial. See our rep, come into a store, compare these products, read this ad, whatever it is to get them to see that your product, especially for head loyal customers, you want to get them to see that your product is better than theirs. So another thing you want to think about in terms of communications is this. This is the content type, the content types along the customer journey. I'll make this a little bit more readable for you. Content types along the customer journey look like this. This is a very busy slide, and you'll have this on in your slide summaries, your downloadable slides. But here we see across the top, once again, the customer journey. And then realize that for each communication objective, we also have different content types and different purposes and different formats. And this is a very handy slide that if you're in marketing, especially in marketing communications, you want to keep this one close by because it gives you basically a script to follow. So for example, at the awareness stage, obviously we're going to get an awareness objective, but here we're trying to think about content around what is the brand and the context of the customer and how the two line up, sort of the shared interest between the brand and the customer. And so the purpose of that content is really to ignite interest, right? To get them to, hey, I should really think about dash cams for my car or sparkling water for my refreshments. We want to light the match, so to speak. And there are a lot of ways to do that. If you see the format examples with blog posts and webinars and podcasts and advertising, all kinds of things are used to ignite that fire, that initial interest. But over later in the journey, the customer journey, customers don't want to see ads anymore. They want a different type of information. I'll move myself out of the way here so we can see in here late in the journey, we want to use more targeted, more peer-to-peer, more private, and it's a completely different communications approach the later we get in the customer journey. And so think about it this way, that early in the journey, we are publicly shouting our message out through what's called one-way communications, advertising. Right? We broadcast, hello, we're out there and we have this great product. But as you get the customer into the journey, it becomes more participatory, especially in social media, right? We allow two-way communications. It becomes a conversation about the value proposition. And here, the brand, you're sharing information about your value, you're getting feedback from them, and you're having a dialogue about features and benefits and value. And later in the journey, it becomes more now about this private conversation. It's very much a kind of a one-on-one phenomena, right? You know the brand and they know you so well that they don't broadcast to you anymore. And I use the example of Delta Airlines. I'm a loyal Delta customer, one of their top tier members. And I don't see their advertisements anymore. I don't really relate to those. It's the email, the one-on-one emails they send specifically to me. It's the greeting at the airport now that becomes so important. Mr. Boyd, thank you. It's nice to have you as a Diamond Medallion member. And that's how these channel types, you as the marketer have to manage this to get the full value out of your dollar spending for communications. So this is another tool that you can use, and this shows how you use different channel types. Again, early in the process, it's more broadcast, but late in the process, it becomes much more targeted. It's one-on-one, it's memberships on special sites, websites, and things like that. And you, again, as the marketer, set these programs up channel by channel, step by step, to match the channel to the step of the journey so that you succeed at getting your value proposition across to the customer. Okay, that's it for brand story and the communications aspect. And the thing to take away here is, once again, like all 4 Ps, the big picture creates that linkage. And the most important slides in here are those strategy matrix, the 4 go-to-market strategies, and how each quadrant gives you the guidance on what to do for that particular tactic.